earn the right to ask for that advocacy. You want to be very humble and very grateful in those relationships. And Brandon, I cannot stress this enough. You've got to respect the risk that are being taken by those who advocate for you. We cannot overlook that when someone says, I vouch for Brandon Smith, he's a great guy, he'd be perfect, they are taking an enormous risk. So let's never underestimate that.
This is the Leadership Foundry podcast. I'm your co-host today, Brandon Smith. And today I come on with my other co-host and co-founder of the Leadership Foundry, Randy Hain. So this is one of the Randy Brandon shows today. And we're going to talk about something that is so very evergreen. And yet in our world of remote work, we've kind of forgotten about the importance of that. And that is, how do we find, develop, and nurture advocates? Those individuals who are not only going to give us good guidance, but kind of shepherd us through our careers and maybe even open up doors. So I love this topic. Randy was bringing up this topic to me earlier this week, and he was spot on. This is such a need, particularly when we've got return to office, because people naturally think of all the things they're losing with return to office. But there's a lot of things you gain, like the opportunity to build those critical advocates in your career. So Randy, I'm going to stop talking here for a minute. All right, my friend, talk to us about advocates. So maybe a good starting place is, when you think about advocates, what does it mean to you and why are they so important for us?
Yeah, listen, I love this topic, and I am shocked over the years that we haven't really explored it before, because I know we probably teach it and do it in our coaching work, but we've never actually talked about it. Yeah. You know, I think about just pure and simple. Advocacy is, are people in rooms where you're not invited talking well about you? Are they speaking well of you when you're not in the room? Now, that sounds pretty easy and basic, but you and I both know there is a lot of work that goes into actually getting someone comfortable advocating for you. So I thought you might ask me that. And as I kind of think about maybe three overarching themes or principles that I would attach to advocacy, I think the first one is, let's agree, hopefully, that the need for cultivating advocates transcends generations. It's not just for early career, it's every stage of your career. I've got 2 executive coaching clients right now that are in their 50s, that are very senior, that really are struggling because they have not cultivated advocates. So it transcends generations. I also think we should think about it in both our professional and personal lives. So that's kind of that first overarching theme. It's across all generations. I think the second thing to think about is, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Advocacy is important, but I think a relationship that leads to advocacy really needs to start with mentorship and coaching. So as you think about winning advocates, let's also think about, first of all, I need to build a mentor-coach relationship where someone's teaching me, guiding me, helping me before they get comfortable advocating for me. So I think mentorship precedes advocacy. And I think the third kind of overarching theme I'd throw out there for you is, let's be comfortable with this idea that advocacy must be earned. No one is going to just give it to you because you desire it. We have to have this mindset. We've got to go out and earn it. We have to win it. We have to earn trust, show credibility. We have to do good work. So those are kind of 3 themes I would throw out there, Brandon. And that's my take. What's your take on that?
No, I love that, Randy. I think as you were talking, it made me think of a marketing term that probably most of us are familiar with, the Net Promoter Score, which is essentially willingness to recommend. And we'll often see that at the end of a survey. Would you be willing to recommend this hotel or this service or this product to a friend or a colleague? It's kind of the same idea. We're trying to build so much kind of credibility, trust, and a relationship that advocate is in a room when we're not there, and they're recommending us. They're saying, hey, Brandy would be great for this. Brandon would be great for this. And it's so important, because that's often when not only doors can get opened, but sometimes I've even had former students of mine and clients of mine talk about having their jobs saved because an advocate was in the room. Going through a downsizing process, or there might be an acquisition or a merger, And that advocate says, no, don't let this one go. We need to keep this one. So advocates can really be a powerful tool to protect us. Now, one thing, Randy, that I would add to this is,
Sure.
I set up our conversation a little bit this way. It's really important to double down on this. Everyone is so frustrated about return to office, and I understand that. There are some things that we lose in that. We lose some flexibility. We might have done a little bit of merging of personal and professional, whether we can agree on the ethics around this, but I've heard people complain about now they have to go get childcare. Well, should you have been doing childcare while you were supposed to also be working? I mean, that wasn't initially how that was designed. But we lose things, but we gain things too, because the ability to build these kind of strategic relationships in our life are very difficult, if nearly impossible to do virtually, simply because the relationship can only go so deep. There's only so much depth we can do over a Teams call or a Zoom call. There's only so much depth. We need that in-person time. We need the hallway conversations. We need the person to kind of feel us when we're around them. That there's a trust element that's built in those interactions. The small ones, big ones, the lunches, the coffees, the seeing us do a presentation. And so this is a great opportunity. If you find yourself in a situation where you are needing to return to office more frequently, think about how you can use that to get those advocates, because the reality is and Randy, I think you'd probably agree with this. When we've worked with clients that have been in hybrid organizations, the folks that are virtual, that don't come into the office and maybe live in another state and do their function, they never get promoted, folks. They don't. If they do a good job, they get staying in their job, but they're not around when people are thinking about who are we going to promote. So you lose the opportunity to get those opportunities when we're not around and we don't have those relationships with advocates. So that would be another kind of element I would add to this. This creates a great opportunity for us to nurture and build those strategic relationships. The last thing I would say to this is there are some folks whose advocates can also be their leaders. And I know some individuals, Randy does too, and their entire career strategy is follow their leader wherever their leader goes. And that it can be a great strategy, particularly if you found a great leader that you really connect with and share similar values with. So it's another way for us to navigate our careers. So just another kind of a couple more kudos for the importance of thinking about this and making this a priority.
Listen, I want to piggyback on this, really good foundational piece that you're laying. I think we should spend a few minutes on just the topic of relationships. So, one thing to just sort of acknowledge, and I think you were alluding to it, you may be at a place in your career, be 22, 42, 62, doesn't matter, where you're just comfortable. Status quo is fine. You feel I'm exactly where I want to be, and I don't really want to put a lot of effort into whatever. That is your choice. It's probably not a wise career choice, but there are people that are just like, I'm good where I'm at. So the reason I bring that up, because what Brandon just said is going to require extra effort, especially if you're virtual. If you are wondering why you're getting passed over, if you wonder why your career is not accelerating, you might have to make the effort to drive from your Nashville office into the corporate headquarters in Atlanta a little more often. You might have to find an excuse to fly in from the country that you operate from to be at the North American headquarters of your company. You might just have to do a lot more of that to be present, to be in the room. Those things matter. So while we're on the topic of relationships, I just want to put a couple of things out there, and then I want to tell a quick story. So I think, again, no matter what your age, I think it's very prudent for you to, kind of sit down and sort of, have coffee and wrestle with this idea of advocacy. What does it mean for you? Do you need it? And if you do, you need to think about, well, exactly what do I want to get out of my career? What is next for me? And do I need help? And if you do need help, you need to look at your network and identify who are the people that maybe I don't currently have a strong relationship with that I need to go invest time with. I need to become, I need to get in their world. They need to become part of mine. I may ask them to coach me, mentor me, but I need to maybe expand my relationships. Or maybe you've already got someone that you have identified. So one of the things that I always give to my clients is a relationship audit exercise. I have you basically score your relationships on a scale of 1 to 10. Anything below an 8 probably needs a little work, but that's going to give you a quick idea of your immediate circle, the most influential people you know, how you're doing in those relationships. So let's audit the relationships and identify who can help me best. Make the ask. Hey, I'd like to spend more time with you. I'd like to learn from you. I would be grateful if you would invest time in me. Maybe it's a little less formal. Maybe it's just someone at work that becomes a friend that you think has a great skill you can learn from. So you're building these relationships. They're either mentors or coaches. Maybe they're just good friends at work. You start to build trust. You find ways to serve their needs. They're helping you. You're credible. Brandon's trust formula comes through. You're authentic. You're vulnerable. You're credible. You're building a trusting relationship. And then let's say that you're at a place where there's a promotion that's out there. There's a job you want to go for. And you have earned the right because you've built a foundation of a trusting relationship. You've actually earned the right to ask someone to maybe advocate for you. Hey, Susan, I'd be so grateful if you would put a good word in for me. Hey, Susan, there's a VP role coming up. I've been hungry to get to that level. Is there anything I'm missing? Anything I need to work on? I'd be grateful if you could help me and maybe open some of those doors. So that's a little bit about how you get to that place where you've earned the right to ask for that advocacy. You want to be very humble and very grateful in those relationships. And Brandon, I cannot stress this enough. You've got to respect the risk that are being taken by those who advocate for you. Mm-hmm. We cannot overlook that when someone says, I vouch for Brandon Smith, he's a great guy, he'd be perfect, they are taking an enormous risk. So let's never underestimate that. Quick story, and then I'll pass you the baton. You and I are in the middle of a process where we may win a great new client for Leadership Foundry. Right. I don't think I told you the origin story, though. 11 years ago, I actually coached a senior leader in this new client, and when she was with another company. It was a brief 3-month onboarding coaching engagement. I think I did good work. It was a good experience for her. It's 11 years ago. She's on my email distribution list. I've always invited her to events. I've nurtured that relationship. And even though we don't see each other that often, I've kept in touch. Well, recently, internally, her company asked for recommendations for a learning and development partner to do what you and I do every day. Well, we were the ones that she recommended they look at. We have a great chance to get it. That's another form of advocacy where a relationship needs to be nurtured, even when you're not working with that person every day, because you never know what could come from it. So I wanted to add that flavor and really dive into relationships with you.
Randy, that is beautiful. And as a reminder to everyone listening, my colleague and good friend and partner who just shared all that, not only is he a skilled, world-class executive coach, he spent many years in the executive search world as well. So he helps people navigate not only their leadership and how they can act more effectively in their roles today, but also many, many years in success in helping people navigate their careers. So please, if you find this particularly relevant for you, rewind this podcast, listen to what Randy said again. It's so very important. It's old school, it's basic stuff, but it's really, really important stuff. So Randy, I want to just add a couple things to this. You make an important point. When we think about building that trust and we go to the trust formula, credibility is such a huge piece. Absolutely. When we're asking someone to be an advocate. Because when we have high credibility, that's another way of saying high reliability. Mm-hmm. So they know they can count on us. They know that we deliver good work. So they say, I'm going to vouch for this person because they always do good work. It's kind of like if you had a contractor come and build you a deck on the back of your house. They did really great work. You're going to want to refer them. They do great work. It's the same thing. So if a contractor showed up and hadn't done any work and said, hey, by the way, would you recommend me to your neighbors? No, not until I see your work. And that's kind of
Yes.
logical. And it's the same idea with this. So Randy's basically giving you a process. Don't jump to the ask until you've shown them the quality of either your character or your competence.
Yes.
I think that's really, really important. People need to see that quality first, just like our deck example. They need to see the quality of character and competence before we jump to the ask. And sometimes I know when I was more junior in my career, I didn't always know the timing of that. I might jump to the ask too early.
Mhm.
So again, when we get those opportunities in the office, this is where we build that.
Mhm.
And to Randy's point, let's say you're remote from headquarters, or you're only going to be coming in 3 days a week or 2 days a week. Schedule specific time to nurture these relationships. I had a client several years ago, and he would fly into the corporate office once a month. He was remote. He was in a sales function, but he would always fly in a day early, and he would use that day to schedule meetings to build relationships. Because he had his regularly scheduled meetings in the other days, but he would intentionally carve out that time to find those key conversations and key relationship opportunities. So, Randy, I have a question for you that I've never really asked you before. It's not a heavy question, but when we think about advocates, is there a rule of how many levels up we should go? Is this kind of a one level up thing, maybe a skip level? Can we go 4 or 5 levels up if we're junior in our career? Is there a sweet spot in terms of kind of distance between the advocate and us?
Yeah, I think that's a very relevant question. And I think you've got to do, if you're a listener, you need to do a gut check and really quickly assess, am I feeling courageous? I would say in my own experience, I have never really thought much about levels. I've always identified who are leaders who I want to learn from, who I think are willing to invest in me. So I could look back at my own career and identify my boss all the way up to the CEO of an organization. So I think it really depends on your comfort level and how courageous you're feeling. My advice would be to go a little more senior. Bosses, listen, some of my bosses over the years were incredible mentors and advocates for me. I owe so much of my early career acceleration to having great bosses who took the time to invest in me. Now, I had to earn it, and believe me, they pushed me and they gave me opportunities that I had to work really hard for, often without compensation or additional title. But I proved, to your point, I was credible, they could rely on me, and they rewarded me by opening doors. But I can remember also situations where I had interactions with the C-suite. And, maybe they complimented me on good work or a project, or they asked me how I was doing. And I felt bold enough in those moments to say, I'd be grateful if I could get 30 minutes on your calendar next month. Can I reach out to your assistant and schedule time? I'd love to pick your brain about, things I could do to continue to accelerate my career. I'd like to learn from you. And that was always well received because I was respectful and courteous. And I think, and I keep saying this, I think I earned the right to ask for that meeting. And then those people in turn became my advocates. They knew me, they knew my name. That's another aspect of this I was going to bring up to you today. I think we need to think about this idea of visibility and maybe communication. So I think we need to communicate our needs very clearly. We need to let people know, I want to grow my career. Now, let's not be the nag and say, I want to get promoted, I want to get promoted, I want to get promoted. That is actually the worst thing you can do. But to strategic people, mentors, coaches, advocates, whoever, you do want to be able to say, hey, listen, I do have ambition. I do want to get to the next level. What do I need to do? So articulating that and being clear is incumbent upon you. I also think that we've got to find ways to make sure that our work is visible. Let's do this authentically. Let's do this the right way, and let's not do it in a way that is going to bother others. But let's make sure that people can see the work we're doing. Let's not be afraid to talk about it with humility. But sometimes you have to advocate for yourself. So that's another form of advocacy where we do have to kind of advocate for ourselves, speak up and say what we want. And that might be another area for us to explore, this idea of not just going to get advocates, but also self-advocacy. Some of my favorite and greatest opportunities I've had in my career, I raised my hand and said, I'd like a chance for that. No, I know that there were people in the room that also felt I was ready, but in some cases I had to raise my hand and say, I'd love that opportunity if it's available. So what's your take on that, Brandon? I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but I think we need to talk about that.
Hey, Randy, you're talking about authorship, brother.
Yeah, there we go.
We're talking about ownership, initiative, and critical thinking. So you see an opportunity for the business and you see a need, don't sit around and wait for somebody to tell you.
Yeah.
Hey, I see this, and this is kind of what I'm thinking. These would be some ways we could tackle it. I would be curious. What do you think? So don't be afraid to bring those kind of authored points of view, because people that show ownership, initiative, and critical thinking, they are just setting themselves up for being a high potential in any organization. Get all those opportunities. The other thing that I would want to add to this, Randy, as you were talking, sometimes advocacy opportunities come along our way to kind of position ourselves for those without us necessarily needing to orchestrate it. So a client I'm working with who's a kind of director level, and he's taken over a new team. He's got a team member that's exceptionally skilled, more junior in his career, in his 20s, very technically sound. And he was going to do a presentation, this kind of technical expert, for the senior team. And so he's going to do the presentation, and luckily my client, who's recently taken over this team, asked to see the presentation first. Turns out the presentation was just slide after slide after slide of technical details. And my client, the director, coached him and said, think about your audience. Think about what they want. He really gave him a lot of guidance. And then that younger technical expert, he delivered a fantastic presentation to the senior team. And he leaves. And my client's sitting there, and there's one leader left in the room. And this leader happens to run another function in the business that has tension with my client's function. So there was tension there. And this leader turned to my client and said, who was that who just gave the presentation? And my client explained, he's this technical expert and on our team. He's amazing. He said, he really wants the ball. We need more people like that. So here this junior person was, because of that coaching, he now has this reputation as wanting the ball from another senior leader. And on top of it is a senior leader that has a general attitude of tension with this department. So all of a sudden, this guy became this like shining star. So my point of this is a couple. One, look for those kinds of opportunities. Every time you get to present to senior teams, that's an opportunity for you to win some advocates.
Yes.
Based on how you show up. Two, I'm not trying to put pressure on people on this podcast here today. Don't screw it up. Ask for a reviewer, typically someone else who kind of knows that audience, to give you some guidance. Had that more junior technical expert not gotten the guidance of my client, he probably would have left that room feeling a little frustrated. That room would have felt frustrated because it was just all technical detail versus really making it more higher level business oriented. So look for those opportunities too. Great opportunities to find and win advocates.
Yeah, I love that. And I think billionaire Richard Branson said, if a door is open and there's an amazing opportunity, even if you don't think you're ready, walk through the door. Figure it out later. So if there is an opportunity for you to shine, get up in front of a group. If there's any way for you to continue to push the limits of where you are, take the opportunity and then go get help and figure it out. So that's another sort of side of this. And I love that your client did that, but I also love that the enemy, the adversary, also saw the value. I think another element of this, we've talked a lot about in the career, how to cultivate advocates. We've talked about, the meaning of that, earning it, and all that stuff. Very important. We've talked a little bit about self-advocacy. I think we need to maybe kind of put the other hat on for just a second and talk about what it means to be a good advocate. So now we've come full circle. We're looking at, and it could be middle managers, senior executives. It could be anybody that is in a position to advocate for others. It can even be professional service providers like you and I. I'll give you a quick example. One of my clients who's based in the Midwest, I was supposed to be out there this week and my flight got canceled. And we had to really, really make a hard pivot and turn what was supposed to be an in-person session into a virtual session. Well, there was one person on the team who has been kind of working with me behind the scenes to orchestrate this. He stepped up in a big way. This guy was a rock star. So when I reached out to my senior executive client, I made sure to praise this individual and let them know, let me tell you, you got a star here. And I copied the gentleman on the email and just went to bat for him because he did such a great job. I got follow-up messages from him and the senior executives that I was bragging to them about him, thanking me, and that they were now really kind of looking at him for some other opportunities. So you have a chance all the time to advocate for people that have, again, earned it. So as a senior leader, take a look at your team. If you're a middle manager, look at your colleagues in your team. Doesn't matter where you are. And think about, you know what? Who has demonstrated potential, ability? Who has earned the right for me to advocate for them? Maybe you're not mentoring them right now or coaching them, but maybe you initiate the relationship. You sit down and say, I want to put some time into you. I want to help you grow your career. I've got at least 3 people in my long career that I can point to that actually sought me out and said, I like the way you operate. I like what you're doing. I want to put some time into you. And I could not be more grateful. So Brandon, let me throw you the ball now, and let's talk about what it means to be a good advocate.
Yeah, I think that's great, Randy. I love that idea. So first, it's what are the lenses that we're going to be looking through? What are we looking for?
Yeah.
So being intentional about that. We can put them into 2 big buckets. I mentioned them earlier, character and competence.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in the middle is probably authorship.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of ownership, initiative, and critical thinking. And so when we see someone really operating in the organization in a way that we need to be advocating for them, the people we want more of, there's typically 2 big traits that we see. First, they put the needs of the organization above themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They do what's needed first, and then they worry about titles or compensation or recognition or rewards later, if they even worry about it at all. But they're always need focused, not
Mm-hmm.
self-focused. Okay, I've had organizations often refer to kind of they put on the big company hat first. You know, are they wearing the big company hat? So that's one. I think the other one that we also see in there is that they're not afraid to kind of take those chances and take those risks and kind of jump right in and offer that assistance and help. So and then finally, I'd also say the best advocates cut across kind of or the best people that gain advocates cut across departments. They don't just stay in their own department. So when we see those folks, it's really incumbent upon us to not only give them kudos, but let their leader and leaders know about them. And sometimes we, you know, if we can do this nicely, sometimes we might want to pull them over to our team. So they still stay in the same family. They just kind of change rooms,
Yes,
so to speak. So I think there's a lot that we can do there, but it's the first step is having the lenses. What are we looking for?
sure.
What do we want to see more of? And then when you see it, call it out. That's why when we get positive feedback, it matters so much. We often when people think of positive feedback, they think it's like cheerleading, and it can be, but really it's behavioral psychology. It's Pavlov's dog. You're seeing behavior. You want to see more of that behavior, reward it. That's how people work. If you call it out and reward it, people will say in their brain, oh, do more of that. And then pretty soon you've got someone that just operates consistently at a high level.
Let me invoke the word generational again with you. I started out by talking about that advocacy transcends generations, but I want to come at this a little differently. I think we need to be very thoughtful about not having what I'm going to call generational bias.
Yes.
Because I think that there is an expectation from those of us who are older millennials, Gen X, maybe even boomers in the workforce, that when we look at Gen Z and these emerging generations, that they're going to treat their careers exactly the way that we did. And I think that's a huge mistake. We will often make assumptions that, well, I'm just waiting for these young people to come and tell me what they want. I'm looking for them to seek me out. I want them to show me what they've got. And there are going to be cases where They absolutely will. I know, Brandon, your daughter is a great example of someone that is amazing at self-advocacy. She's been really working hard to build her career. I couldn't be prouder of her. She's a rock star. But that's not really what you often see today. So I think if we're older leaders, older generations, let's be willing to, again, to your point, have the lens of looking for character, competency. Let's look for potential. But we probably need to be a little more proactive about reaching out and saying, hey, I like the spark. I like the glimmer I'm seeing here. I'm going to put some time into you. Let's get coffee. And then if you're a Gen Zer, if you're a younger professional listening to this podcast, we want to encourage you to maybe move beyond maybe some self-doubt or concerns you've got about reaching out to more senior people and take a risk. Take a risk and reach out and say, I'd like some help from you. I don't know what I don't know, and I'd like to spend time with you. But I wanted to point this out, Brandon, because I do think there is a tendency for us to assume that people will run their careers the way that we did. I remember being hungry and ambitious and hardworking, and that's really, and maybe decently smart, but I brought all that to the workforce, and that really worked for me. And I was not going to let anything get in my way. Well, that may not be what everybody thinks today. And I want to be mindful that maybe I need to do a little more on my side where I'm at generationally to help these young people. So any take on that?
Yeah, I would say, Randy, where there's some question marks, and I want to add a caveat. Randy will second this caveat. It is unfair to place any label on any one generation. You're always going to have a range. And particularly as we think about millennials, Gen Z, there's been a range, and it has a lot to do with how they were raised, parenting. There's different factors, but there's a range. People can show up very differently. So with that as a kind of a caveat, I would say a couple things. One big difference that might be true for Gen Z versus other generations that came prior is there's much more of a sensitivity around doing what some term hidden work that is unpaid. And there's a much more sensitivity around people feeling like they're being taken advantage of when they do that. Now, when Randy and I grew up, that was how you got ahead. You did those extra things. That's how you got on people's radar. That could still be the case today. But I also recognize there could be times when organizations take advantage of people that do that. So that'll be something that everyone will have to kind of navigate with. But what I would offer is maybe two kind of thoughts in this, to kind of analogies that might make this helpful for folks looking to build advocates if they're a little more junior in their career, or maybe even any time in your career. First, I often share this. It came from the luxury retail world. We need to go from a clerking mindset to a clienteling mindset. So a clerking mindset is you're just sitting back waiting for the senior leader to come say, hey, I need you to do this for me. You're going to be waiting a long time. So a clienteling mindset is you say, you would look great in this. We're proactively coming to the customer and saying, you look great in this, or this is what I think I could do to help. And so don't be afraid to do that. Be proactive. Give advice or a recommendation. That's one. The second one is how we look for advocates. A good advocate is in your vertical. A great advocate is outside your vertical. And if you can get both, if you've got folks in the room advocating for you, someone that's a senior leader in your function, and then someone's a senior leader outside your function, you just won the game. You just won the game. So the analogy I always use is here in the Southeast, we have these big trees. They're called Leyland cypresses. And Leyland cypresses are full sun trees. They grow like 3 feet a year. You know you've got a Leyland cypress. You ever planted one too close to your house? Because within about 3 or 4 years, you're like, we got to take this thing down. It's huge. Okay, they grow vertically really fast, really quickly every summer. I mean, they just shoot up. The problem with Leyland cypresses is whenever we have a storm, they are the first trees to fall. Their root system is really narrow. They grow up, but they don't grow out. Don't be a Leyland cypress. Make sure you have a really good root system, because root systems weather storms. So if you want a really good risk management strategy for your career, advocates, particularly ones that are maybe either in different industries or different verticals, because having that range of folks from different backgrounds and perspectives all pointing to you saying we need more on that person, that's success. So those would be some kind of closing thoughts for me, Randy.
Yeah, I love it. And as we kind of get ready to land the plane in a minute, I do think we want to leave our listeners with some really good tactics, some good, very practical approaches. So I'm going to come back to one of my favorites that I often give my clients. If as you listen to this today, either you're someone that wants to grow your career, you need advocates for that, you want to be better at self-advocacy, or maybe you want to advocate for others, whatever your place. I think it starts with a relationship audit. Sit down and take stock of your network. Who do you know? How are your relationships? Just kind of figure out, who do I know and who's in there? Secondly, be very clear. Do some list making about, what is my goal? How can I be clear about what I want? What are my goals? Your goal could be, at this point in your career, I want to grow as fast as I can, and I want people to get me the next level, and I'm going to work my butt off to get there. Fantastic. I'm in a place where I'm really comfortable, but I've got bandwidth to go advocate for others. So I'm going to really be thinking about, where can I make some investments? So no matter where you are on the advocacy spectrum, do the audit, think about what it is that you want, that you're willing to put into this right now. For most of our listeners, it's probably growing your career, but it could be anything. So I think, just assessing the network, understand what you want, and then I guess really think about, what is it that I'm willing to do? What will I commit to? What do I have the courage to do? So courage and commitment are also big parts of this, because it's not easy to go and earn advocates. You've got to really put some effort into it. It's not easy to, get out of your bubble and get out from behind your desk and go and actually invest in people and advocate for them. So it's going to take a little commitment and a little courage. But I think those are three just practical tactics, Brandon, I would throw at you. Anything you would add to that list?
No, I would add one thing. One final thing. Randy, you rounded it out perfectly. The last is very tactical, very tactical. How much time should you ask for?
Yes.
So, for example, if you're going to ask, say, this senior vice president, I'm so impressed by her, I want to get on her calendar. And if you're more junior in your career, you might say to yourself, I'm going to ask for an hour. That's going to be a frustrating experience for you, because that hour is going to get moved multiple times. So when we're asking for that initial conversation, two things make that optimal. One, we really want to make sure that time is efficient and effective. The sweet spot is 30 minutes. If you need to, and that's not working, drop it down to 20, but try not to surpass 30. And ideally, you're doing it over coffee or lunch or breakfast or something. Maybe there's a company cafeteria or there's a restaurant nearby or something easy where it's a little more casual. They may ask you to come to their office, and that's fine too. But 30 minutes is a really, really good ask, because you're more likely to get it and it's less likely to be moved. And then everything Randy said, have your questions, have your goals, know what you're trying to get out of the conversation, come prepared, and maybe even for bonus points, send your questions about 24 hours ahead of time prior to the meeting, just so that potential advocate knows what you want to talk about. Folks don't like surprises, and that allows them to also be a little more prepared. So I would say those are all some kind of helpful ways to really manage this process efficiently and be as respectful as you can to those potential advocates that you might meet.
Brandon, I love that. And I would just add one little addendum, a little piggyback on something you said. When you think about, so we're probably talking about folks that are looking to grow their career, they're seeking advocacy, and they're looking to build these relationships. Always make it easy for the other person. I know it sounds obvious, but I see this mistake being made every day, where people say, well, I live in Midtown. Can you meet me for coffee here? Hey, I live over here. Can you do this for me? Hey, I 2:00 this afternoon works for me. Can you meet me then? No. You want to make sure you are thinking about the person whose help you need, making it as easy as possible for them. Another pro tip, go to their assistant and ask them, what is the easiest way for so-and-so to meet with me? Brandon's point about the cafeteria, a cup of coffee before the day starts. Look for making it easy for them, but always put the other person's needs first. That will show maturity, thoughtfulness, and it's just smart. Just a smart way to go.
Also, the whole line of clienteling, which is really, that's how you're going to be seen. And clienteling is another word for that ownership, initiative, critical thinking. You're thinking about others, and you're considering them as you're navigating some of these relationships. Well, Randy, my friend, always a great conversation. You and I didn't really have a structured outline planned, and we knew it would just organically unfold, and it did. So thank you for not only your wisdom and guidance, but some really good tactics along the way, my friend. I mean, good stuff. You always land the plane well in terms of practical, pragmatic next steps. Well, for those of you listening, I hope you took away something from today. The biggest question to ask yourself as you're kind of ending listening to us today is really two things. First, do you have the advocates in your life that you need to be successful? The answer is yes. Follow what we've talked about. Maybe it's a continue for you. The answer is no. Think about what you could start and stop to get there. And then second, lastly, how can you be a great advocate for others? Just as folks have kind of helped bring us along, how can we bring folks behind us along as well? So as always, whenever we do a Leadership Foundry podcast, at the end of the day, it's all about what can you take away today to help you and your teams thrive more starting tomorrow.